Okay, so that was an excellent panel. For those of you that are interested in the topic, there's a concept known as interfunctional coordination that came about in the late 90s, and there's been a number of papers written on it. So if you want to learn more about how big organizations look at growing together and forward. But next up, we got a great panel led by an awesome speaker I've always found, George Ivie, who heads up the MRC. So George and panel, ¿dónde están? There you go.
Seeing me in that bubble up there is pretty striking. Reminds me of a story. I'm walking along the streets of Paris one morning, and this French guy comes up to me and grabs me, and he's patting me on the back, and he says, "You are a big American star." And I said, "Big American star? No." He goes, "Yes, you are." I said, "Well, who am I?" He pulls me aside. "You are John Goodman." I said, "Dude, I don't know if that's a compliment." Anyway, welcome. We're here to talk about some new things that are developing in the worlds of large digital platforms. And specifically, that has to do with some auditing and transparency initiatives that are coming forward related to their data and measurements. First, perhaps not everybody knows who the MRC is. We're a small, not-for-profit industry association in the US that sets standards for media measurement, and we conduct audits of companies that measure media. One of the interesting things is because of some of the standards we've set, we have a growing level of international visibility. We do audits, for example, in Latin America and other places. We're doing 3 audits in China over AdMaster, Maogen Systems, and Nielsen in China. So there's a lot going on, and especially in the standards area. We're working with some large digital platforms to sort of break into their environments and illuminate their processes, validate their metrics. And most importantly, the goal is to enable third-party measurement of their platforms. All of them have first-party measurement platforms. You're all familiar with them probably. You've been using their data, relying on their measurements. But especially advertisers have had some pretty strong demands to bring in third-party independent measurements of these organizations and have that audited and accredited. There are some, and we're working in 4 specific silos, as this slide indicates. First is validating standard, industry standard viewability metrics on these platforms. Also validating sophisticated invalid traffic filtration, validating their integration with third-party audience measurement services like ComScore and Nielsen. ComScore has a product called VCE. Nielsen has a product called DAR. If you're not familiar with those products, you should get familiar with those products. They're pretty powerful. And last but not least, we're looking at brand safety in these platforms, setting standards that are rigorous in that area and auditing their brand safety functionality. These enterprises are at sort of various stages of commitment to those 4 silos. Facebook, Instagram, and Google, YouTube, and Twitter have committed to an audit of viewability and some other things, which we'll talk about in a minute. And we're in discussion with a lot of the other platforms, Amazon, Walmart, Jet, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Snap. Those enterprises are not fully committed in a way that can be publicly discussed. My last slide is kind of an illustration of what's happening. These environments, first of all, are highly mobile first. And for those of you involved in this area, you probably know that things like JavaScript tags don't fly in that environment. And they also are dealing with a number of advertisers and vendor functionalities. So what they're trying to do is enable an API-type data feed that can be audited and relied upon, that's highly granular, basically has all the activity from the page on it, to boil it down to simple terms. So you've got client devices feeding data and signals in from users. It's aggregated. There's even some signals, for example, for invalid traffic and fraud captured, passed into an API, which is then passed in a standard format to the third-party vendors. These third-party vendors are companies like Moat, IAS, ComScore, et cetera, Double Verify. So what we're auditing is what's in the box, how good that is, how accurate that is, when it changes, et cetera, that data is accurate and can be used. And we're also auditing the integration with the third-party measurement vendors. These measurement vendors are used to getting a data flow that arises from their tag. And this API is a different data flow. So you have to validate that different data flow is ingested properly. So that's why there are two components to this audit, the box and the flow to the vendors. That, in a nutshell, is what's going on. I'm going to invite up to the stage the stars of the show, because it ain't me. That's my contact information if anybody has questions. Alec, you look different. No beard. So Alec is really the guy at Google who's running all the audit functions. He's he's the senior product manager. I promoted you. At Google. We also have Arnaud Munir from Google, who's a managing director for Europe, Middle East, and Asia, I believe. And he's in charge of analytics and data partners. And then we also have Brad Smallwood from Facebook. So two Google guys, one Facebook guy. He's the VP of Marketing Science. Maybe you guys have run into these folks, so I'm going to stop with the introductions, and then we're going to talk.
Hello? Okay, it's working now.